Welcome to Tiny Pep Talks for Step Parents, a short weekly podcast with new episodes every Sunday. For today's pep talk, those problems were already there. A pep talk for step parents who get gaslit into believing that the dysfunction at home and or between co-parents is somehow their fault. I've been watching this show about the early reign of Queen Victoria, and there's one episode featuring a little throwdown between the butler who wants to keep using candles and the housekeeper who wants to upgrade to gas-powered lights. They install the gas-powered lights in one wing of the castle, and all of a sudden there's rats everywhere. And the butler's like, "See, this is what you get when you put in better lighting. All the rats come out." But the rats were already there. It was just easier to pretend like they weren't a problem while their presence was shrouded by the shadows of poorly lit rooms. Once they lost their dark hidey holes and started scurrying around looking for newer, darker places to hide, the rats became more noticeable, yes, but they were always already there. Step-parents can come into our families like floodlights, shining bright into those dark corners and illuminating all the problems our partners have been denying. We're taken aback if, instead of addressing those problems, our partners instead point at us and say, "These rats are your fault." And then we second-guess ourselves. Did we cause a dramatic increase in rats? That conflict between our partner and the ex, though, the dysfunctional dynamics between our partner and their kids, those problems were already there. They were just easier to ignore before we step-parents showed up with our irritating questions about the status quo, shining a light into the dark places no one had to acknowledge before. It is simpler to blame a step-parent than figure out where those rats originally came from and come up with a plan for how to get rid of them. Alternatively, gaslight a step-parent into thinking there are no rats. This is fine. Everything is fine. If there's a problem here, it's you, the step-parent. The term gaslight comes from a play of the same name that was later turned into a movie. The plot revolves around a wife whose husband is trying to convince her she's insane so he can, 1, hide his own criminal activities in the attic, and 2, get her institutionalized so he can then access her fortune. The wife keeps hearing footsteps through the ceiling, and the gas lights dim sometimes, just as they would if someone turned on the attic lights. Her husband keeps telling her she's imagining it. No one's upstairs. There are no footsteps. The lights are fine. Everything is fine. She's the one with problems. Watching the movie is chilling. The audience realizes how susceptible we all are to being gaslit ourselves, how quickly we can start doubting our own perceptions and beliefs. I spent many years believing that I was the problem, that I was the catalyst for the conflict between Dan and his ex, that I was the wedge between Dan and his daughter. But those problems were already there. All I did was shine a light on them. I tried not to. I did my best to keep the peace. I really, really did. But at a certain point, I could no longer pretend to myself that I was fine living in a castle full of rats. I'm sending extra love to all of you bright lights this week, to the bear pokers and the rabble-rousers and the squeaky wheels who refuse to be greased into submission. Keep fighting the good fight. If you're listening to this by podcast, please check the show notes for a link to the full transcript over on Substack, along with a bunch of other resources. We would love to see you over there.